A Volkswagen ID Buzz with 335 brake horsepower. How do you get one of them? Well, you buy a GTX version of this soon to be iconic, because I think one day it will be an iconic car. Think of a bully in a very modern version, and it's the car that everybody really wants to love, but now it's had a few tweaks as it's been around for a couple of years. So this particular version is VW's 4Motion technology, dual motored, more power to the rear, but it has up to 80 kilowatt on the front axle and on the way to 600 Newton meters of torque. But it's clever enough that it can split enough power, whether you need enough on the rear, give some more to the front, and results in a grippy, controlled environment for an enjoyable drive. Now, the new version of the ID Buzz is available in a 6 and a 7 seat configuration, and a normal wheelbase and a long wheelbase in also the GTX version of it. So there's loads of options. There's some changes in the battery, there's some changes inside, and we'll cover it all on the video today. So stick with me and maybe consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so yet. The obvious changes with the GTX version are the GTX badging on the side of the car, the two-tone, well, the multi-tone, so a bit of grey, black, and this lovely red that just works and makes it look different enough to the ID Buzz that you might be familiar with. Let's take a look around the back. Rear quarter hasn't changed in the sense that you have these three inserts, but now there's obviously more grey and black because this is the ultimate GTX version of the vehicle. Still have a rear wiper, not much has changed on the back, a lovely black and white VW badge. Now, the multi-flex floor is something you may or may not be familiar with. The idea is even when you drop the rear seats down, you'll get a flat floor. And now on the ID Buzz, you can remove some of the seats to give yourself more space. You can do things like fit a dog cage with tethering points in the back of the vehicle. So it just gives you a huge amount of options. This particular car we're looking at in this video is the standard normal wheelbase 5-seater, but we'll give you a look at a long wheelbase standard version of the ID Buzz in another video if you want to watch that also. So there's endless opportunities in terms of space. You can store plenty of items and charging cables in here. And this is the idea of the raised floor, but still flat for loading things in and out. So it just gives you better options. What has changed, and I'll give you a look at them inside the vehicle very soon, on the long wheelbase version, the Buzz now has air conditioning vents for the middle and rear row of seats, which is a welcome addition. Doesn't come on the 5-seater normal version of the car, unfortunately. Still something that VW say you don't need. I'd beg to differ on a hot day in the back of the car, because you might just want a little bit of extra cooling in the summertime, for example. There's now more cells in the batteries of the ID Buzz, so 79 kilowatt hour and 86 kilowatt hour are the two different battery sizes. And Volkswagen have also switched providers to CATL, who are the biggest manufacturer of batteries for EVs in the world. If you thought it was BYD, it's not. So charging port is still on this side of the car. CCS charging obviously is there, as well as AC. On the GTX version, we're now getting 200 kilowatt charging. And on the lesser, but still really great, long wheelbase and updated versions of the ID Buzz, you'll achieve charging speeds of 185 kilowatt. And the range is up to 487 kilometers now. So quite a difference on the original battery chemistry that we had in the earlier versions of this car. Some nice additions in the GTX version interior wise. We have this red piping and stitching on the seats, this darker interior, a little bit of Alcantara on the center points on the seat. Everything is darker and black in a great way, because you know this is the sporty idea of the vehicle. These are the air vents that now have made their way into the back. So if you get a GTX version, you will get some air, but for the standard car in the 5-seater configuration, there won't be some air in the back. These retro handles from the Bully and the T6 are also here, and also from the Beetle, to be fair. We have these tray tables on the backs of the seats, device holders for gadgets. Pretty much everybody should be happy, and there's plenty of charging options for charging devices spaced right throughout the vehicle, as well as a Harman Kardon option, and you can get rear heated seats in the back. So think of the GTX as obviously the more powerful version, but the one with pretty much every extra that you can think of. If you've seen the glass roof in the new ID7 that can be darkened, well, darkened is probably the wrong word, but the opacity on it can change. This is the largest glass sunroof that Volkswagen have put into any passenger car that they have. So the entire VW group, that is the biggest glass roof. That floods in the light, and if it is too much, one touch of the button kind of frosts it over, so you get a better idea then. Obviously these seats, depending on long wheelbase, short wheelbase, they can be removed fully from the vehicle, giving you more space, and if you get the 6 or 7 seater version, you'll be able to walk from the front of the vehicle right the way through. So space is definitely more useful in the larger car, but maybe you just don't need the extra space, and also the price will slightly increase for the bigger versions. But yeah, the GTX, think of it as a GTI trim option that you can now get. There's more red in the front of the GTX, the steering wheel that you will be familiar with from ID4 and 5 GTX also, for example. The big change is, though, this is 5.0 version of software, which means it has preconditioning for batteries to achieve the optimum charging speed, for example. It has the latest software platform. All of the bugs and issues that have been plaguing Volkswagen for the last few years should be ironed out. So this should be a case of more ID buzz than ID bugs, hopefully. And it's the same size, just over 12-inch screen. The slider for volume is here. There's a little bit of wireless charging going on. We have cup holder, storage options. If you want more space, this buzz box has a little button on it. You push it down and you can remove this fully, or put it in the back, or just use it as a table when you're camping. And it's really easy to click it back in. What I also like is there's a lot of different dividers and stuff, for example, in here to just stop things rattling around. But there's rubberized mats in a lot of the door cards, here in front of the passenger. And it's really useful. One, it stops things rattling around, but it also grips onto things. So it's quite useful on that front. More of the black headlining, obviously, and a bit of silver going on here. There's a dark wood trim effect. All the plastics here are black. So it is quite a difference. If you remember the launch Buzz, we had white and green in the trim. So it is quite a difference in what we're used to. Also, these individual adjustable armrests, one on either side, so it's kind of a captain's vibe. Sitting position is unchanged, still really good, loads of visibility. I'll cover it in the drive, but the turning circle, once again in the ID Buzz, is an awful lot of fun. If you're planning on having something attached to your Buzz, the GTX version can tow 1.6 ton. The standard normal wheelbase version can carry up to 1.8 ton. So something like an Airstream Caravan, which Volkswagen have kindly displayed today, will be something that you can tow. But again, check the weights of anything you have at home, because you don't want to order a car and then find out that you can't tow the thing that you need to go on your holidays with. Games are now a feature on the Buzz, so when you're charging, you'll be able to play solitaire, chess, bubbles, Sudoku, even Connect 4, which is probably the game I'm best at. Single player or multiplayer mode, so you can actually play against the car, and any standard person who's used Connect 4 will figure it out. And it's just a nice way to pass the time if you're waiting for maybe 20 minutes to top up the battery. I do like the changes though, like the textures and finishes and the dark textures on the GTX seats and stuff really do work and give it a more sporty vibe on the inside of the Buzz. As if the standard car didn't quite have enough power, spoiler alert, it does. The GTX version has an extra thump in your back seat. Now, it's not a huge jump. 282 to 335 brake horsepower. It's not that it's unremarkable, but the standard car really is quite quick. What you are going to pay extra for here, is, apart from the looks and the interior, is the extra grip, and that might be something that you need. Obviously bearing in mind the towing capacity is slightly down on this version, but coming out of a corner on a greasy road, there's just that extra amount of reassuring grip where you might need it. There is also the added bonus of slightly faster charging, and everything feels a bit more firm, if you get me. Not the ride, but certainly the firmness in the steering. It feels heavier. It has a more sports orientated feel to the car. So let's wing it around the corner. Still feels heavy. The standard normal wheelbase is still a good 300 kilos lighter than the long wheelbase version, which is 2,700 kilos. So it's all heavy, but you know, relative. Someone asked me recently, is power to weight even more relevant now in EVs because of the weight? And I suppose it is, and that's why a lot of EVs perhaps have so much brake horsepower, to overcome that added weight and still make the car feel like it has enough power. In some cases it's too much power. You might wonder, does the GTX need 335? Like, you get to a point where it doesn't feel like this thing belongs going that fast. This is a cruising vehicle, a comfortable vehicle, a vehicle that will carry a lot of people around in. I don't know if this volume of vehicle going that fast in a straight line makes sense in your head. And it's one thing for you being in control and knowing what you're doing. For the rest of the occupants of the bus, it might just be a step too far. Away from the lights we go. And this, despite all the extra grip, I still got the traction light to come on. But it's impressive to shift so much weight with so much power and just have a little brief flicker of the traction light. I think that would happen with any car with this much power. It's not exclusive to the ID Buzz. Energy consumption, a little bit up on the standard car, the standard performance, which is now 282 brake horsepower. That was doing around 22 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. This is closer to 26.5. You might slightly better that, but don't forget we're in summertime here and it's good temperatures and it's, you know, not bad conditions for electric. But it's something very fast in a straight line and reasonable around corners. It's very capable. I just don't think the extra power is actually necessary. I think the Buzz has enough going on now in standard power mode. A couple of reasons why you might want a GTX version over the standard ID Buzz. Extra grip perhaps. The extra brake horsepower, the standard car now comes with 282 brake horsepower, which is more than enough. So I don't know if the jump in actual performance is warranted to go for the GTX over the standard car. The extra grip perhaps so, and certainly the colour. The red, the silver, the black and the interior trim really works. The main thing that I don't know right now is prices for Ireland. Certainly in the UK, the prices for this haven't been announced yet either, but from a normal wheelbase to a long wheelbase standard ID Buzz is only an extra £500 sterling. So fingers crossed for something similar in Ireland. But for fans of the ID Buzz who just want a little bit more, the GTX is coming very soon. Let me know your thoughts on the video comments down below. Thank you for your continued support and goodbye from Hanover in Germany.